Welcome back to Vantage Point. We're in conversation with Dr. Dayan Jayatilleka regarding the Chogam that was held in Sri Lanka and also about the international pressure that is mounting, Doctor. Well, Doctor, now David Cameron, the British Prime Minister, he came to Sri Lanka, he made certain really hard-hitting statements, and he was followed by the British media. We saw the BBC, we saw Channel 4 constantly behind him, even in Jaffna. And incidentally, Doctor, there was a report that was shown on BBC about a BBC reporter trying to get closer to the president, and he was saying that there was somebody behind the cameraman. Doctor, I just want to put this in perspective. Is it possible for reporters to really, follow protocol when they are basically doing a job near the president, near a head of state? There are certain protocols that have to be followed for sure. And do you think this was in some way going against these standard protocols?
There are two aspects to this, or two dimensions. One is the Western press, and here I say this as a compliment. The Western press doesn't place political leaders on a pedestal. I mean, look at the US President or the British Prime Minister. They shove microphones in their faces. That's a democratic way of functioning. I mean, leaders are not regarded as kings or emperors. So yes, they will come close and they will ask in-your-face questions, and that's the way it is. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Now, there's something else though. The British press is part of the Western media which dominates the international information system, and there is a concerted campaign against Sri Lanka. Now, yes, we can be a little paranoid about this, and certainly officials of the Sri Lankan state are particularly paranoid, but as Dr. Henry Kissinger once said, just because you're paranoid, it doesn't mean they're not out to get you. And the Western press is out to get us. It's out to get not just Mahinda Rajapaksa or Gotabaya Rajapaksa, it's out to get the Sri Lankan army. But worst of all, it's out to get the war. A war which was essentially a just war with incidents, of course, of excesses and maybe even crimes. But essentially a just war is being depicted as a horrible quasi-genocidal onslaught. So they're out to get us, but the Sri Lankan state does not know how to handle it. They think that, or it thinks that you can handle the Western press or the international media, including the Indian media, the way you handle the Sri Lankan press. Now, it can't be done. And I would dare say that you can't handle the Sri Lankan press that way either. Because after Chogam, and watching how the international press conducts itself, I think, and I can see, a greater independence of spirit, a greater sense of enterprise on the part of the Sri Lankan media. And I'm very happy about that. It's good. There was one person, though, in government who has a lot of experience with the international media and the international information system, and that's Dr. Sarath Amunugama. I don't think he was consulted. I saw him greeting Prince Charles or somebody, and of course, we met that day at the opening. But this is a man who was a director of UNESCO. He knows how the international information system works. He is somebody who should, it's as important to know this as it is to know international politics. Today, the challenge to Sri Lanka takes place in two dimensions: international politics and the international media. Unfortunately, the people who seem to be taking decisions know neither, and those who know either one or both are not taking decisions, which is a pity. So the battle of narratives, the battle of images has been lost by Sri Lanka right now. There are some good images that have gone out. There's some grudging admiration or admission by the Western press that certain things went well. But there are horror stories out there. And an impression has been created of the Sri Lankan regime, the Sri Lankan state, of Sri Lanka as a country, of the military, of the last days of the war, which is warped, distorted, ugly. And it is fed also by stupid and ugly conduct on the part of some of us.
So, do you agree, Doctor, or do you disagree that Chogam, in a sense, was a PR debacle for the government of Sri Lanka?
No, it was a mixed picture. It was a mixed picture. There were significant victories. It has been uneven. I think the further east one goes in the world, the more sympathy there is for Sri Lanka, and perhaps even further south. But that's not uniform, because Brazil voted against us. In Latin America, I don't think we are viewed with sympathy anymore, though in 2009 in Geneva these were our, I might even say my, closest allies.
But within the Chogam, Doctor, I mean, as you said, the media was constantly trying to claw the Sri Lankan government, but the way the Sri Lankan government responded was questionable. So in that sense, do you feel as if the Sri Lankan government really didn't know how to use this soft power tool we were talking about at the last episode as well, and it was very evident at Chogam 2013?
Well, the Sri Lankan government, you have to look at it as a sort of layer cake. The president knows how to use soft power. Look at the two press conferences. There were two press conferences. This is apart from the encounter with Channel 4. Now that's soft power. He punches back when he has to. He smiles. He tries to explain. He was himself. I mean, this is the man I have known from, on and off from 1999. He was sincere. He was authentic. He was also wrestling with certain things. I'm not saying he got everything right, but that's more than adequate. The problem is that is not the only response within the Sri Lankan state. I mean, that is completely at variance with the way other people respond.
And there was a press conference that was held again at Chogam, where we saw a parliamentarian who was among the among the reporters.
What happened? There was a parliamentarian, a minister, somebody who got up there, Mr. Ajwa, and this was a press conference. I mean, how could this happen? This is surreal. It's crazy. It's an insult to Sri Lanka. And Richard Oku,
the Commonwealth spokesperson,
he came down hard. Why would surely if they wanted a journalist to ask a pointed question, they could have got some member of the state media to do so. I mean, surely. This is a blunder of the worst sort, and it's very difficult really for me to imagine that Mahinda Rajapaksa would have told him to go and ask a question pretending to be a journalist. So I think the president knows how to use soft power. What he has not been able to do is to ensure that the Sri Lankan state as a whole projects soft power externally, and we have lost that battle. But as for the president, he knows how to behave. In when there are cameras and the international press, he passed that test during the Chogam week. I can't say the same for the Sri Lankan state as a whole.
What are the lessons, Doctor, that Sri Lanka can learn from Chogam 2013, from David Cameron's visit to Sri Lanka? If we are to host another, let's say, a big convention of this sort, what can Sri Lanka learn out of the one we just saw 2 weeks ago?
Well, learn from the example of Mahinda Rajapaksa. Learn how to behave, how to conduct oneself. Be firm where you have to, and be friendly. You can do both, and speak as authentically as you can. Communicate. I mean, President Rajapaksa knows how to. I mean, he communicates. He converses. He doesn't give lectures. Nor does he lose his temper. There was one moment where there was a flash of annoyance or firm, extra firmness. It was a robust reply, but I thought that was good. He was a little forceful, not all the time. So it's more effective when it comes out, and it came from the heart. So I think that is the example. And as far as the rest of it goes, lock the dogs up. I mean, and I don't mean the ones who were taken from Colombo to Aturgiri or wherever. Don't allow anything that looks like mobs and thugs, and and don't invade or don't allow any invasion of the main Democratic Opposition Party's headquarters, though that party might have behaved in a very questionable way. But you don't provide the cameras with fodder by allowing, I was about to say sending, but allowing people to march into the main parliamentary opposition's headquarters or stand outside and yell. I mean, that's not the way. You have to manage the image, which means you have to manage the behavior of your foot soldiers, which was not done. Things are okay at the center, but not at the semi-periphery or the periphery.
Doctor, also another personality that came out from Chogam was Dr. Chris Nonis.
Yes, he did well.
And he was interviewed on CNN, on BBC. He also gave certain press conferences, and he made some very interesting statements about the pressure that has been exerted on Sri Lanka, and he said it was a proxy propaganda war. What are your thoughts on this, Doctor?
Well, I think that's one aspect or one dimension of it. Of course, he couldn't lay it all out, in an interview of sound bites, but I'm sure he'd also agree that this is one aspect. It is a proxy propaganda war on the part of a strong network in the Tamil diaspora, which is trying to turn back the defeat of 2009. But that's not all it is. There are many people out there, large swathes of world opinion, that's just shocked by the images that they see. There's a human factor here. There's a factor of pathos. Now, it won't do for us to brush it off or deny it. What you have to do is empathize and put it in context. You have to have a different narrative. Now, Dr. Nonis and Dr. Palitha Kohuna are, of our serving diplomats, I think the two most capable when it comes to dealing with the international media. Those are the two who have done best of the current crop of ambassadors, as far as I can tell.
The next important, let's say, milestone that Sri Lanka has to face is the UN Human Rights Council sessions in Geneva in March, the ultimatum for which British Prime Minister David Cameron gave for an international investigation. Now, Doctor, you have been in the United Nations. You were there in March 2009 when many countries supported Sri Lanka's stance when resolutions were brought against Sri Lanka. The 2014 March sitting that is going to take place will see new countries coming in, countries that have always existed in the UN not being at that sitting. Talk to us a little bit about this system, Doctor, the UN Human Rights Council system. How does it work, and how will it work for 2014 March?
Well, Mahina, if I may back up a little bit, what few people know is that